Hi, everybody. Welcome back. We've got a really interesting presentation coming up on the community-driven product enhancement, aka CERV updates. I would just like to introduce our presenters. Jessie Donaghey is a digital services librarian at Bond University and is the coordinator of the IGeLU Leganto product working group. Stacey van Groll is Manager, Discovery and Access at the University of Queensland and is the coordinator of the IGeLU Primo working group. Dave Allen is Lead, Digital Preservation at the State Library of Queensland and is the IGeLU Chair. I know we don't really have to introduce these people because we all know them and we all know the great work that they do, but there you go, that's done. So thanks, guys. I'm looking forward to this.
Thank you, Patricia. That's a lovely introduction. And hello, everybody. So on behalf of Dave, Stacey and myself, I would like to start with acknowledging the traditional custodians of the lands from where we are each joining today, the Kombumerri people and the Turrbal people. And we pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. And I'd like to extend that acknowledgement to all First Nations people joining us today. So the theme of our conference is villains and heroes, and we have gone with some mountain range visuals in our slides today to connect to the theme of symbolising the hero's journey, trials, growth and transformation. To get to where we are now from the old NERS platform to the two new platforms that is suit the complex needs of the user organisations, and running successful product ballots this year is quite a heroic mountain of work and effort that everyone puts into the enhancement process. And that's not just the user organisations. Before we get into it, I'll give a quick rundown of what we have planned for the session. So I'm going to start with a little background information on what CERV is and why we have it. I'll also answer a couple of obvious questions, but we are also keen to hear from you today. So throughout the session, if you do have questions, you can pop those into the chat and we'll get to them at the end. We're also interested in hearing your feedback from any enhancement ballots that you've participated in this year. So maybe you submitted an enhancement request, or maybe you took part in the voting part of the process and you'd like to share some of your experience. So you're welcome to pop that in the chat as well, and we'll have a little look at that at the end too. So Stacey's going to talk about the enhancement portal and show a little of the admin side of the system and how it's used by the working groups, and as well as sharing a couple of tips, I guess, for when it comes time for you to submit your own enhancements. And Dave's going to give a good overview of the process required to set up the ballot in the voting portal using the Election Buddy system. And by the end of it, you'll get a good idea of what I mean when I refer to the complexities of the user organisations throughout the presentation. And then obviously we'll have a little bit of time for questions at the end. So let's talk a little bit about what CERV is. So yes, it's pronounced CERV, not CERV. And even though I know that, I have to remind myself frequently of the correct pronunciation. So CERV encompasses both the enhancement submission component of the voting ballot, which is open to members of the user organisations IGeLU and ELUNA. Both the steering committees and the working groups have roles and responsibilities on running the enhancement process. And you might also be wondering why the heck we even have an enhancement process. And well, that was formalised in the Product Development Collaboration Agreement. So this collaboration agreement has existed since 2008, and it covers the governing principles, which includes things like that only institutions licensing a product can vote on its enhancements. It also talks about the responsibilities. So from the user organisations side of things, we have responsibilities like coordinating the enhancement voting, communicating community concerns to Ex Libris. We track and report on the enhancement process. We provide feedback and subject matter expertise to Ex Libris. Then the Ex Libris side of the responsibilities include maintaining regular communication with the working groups, providing roadmaps, updates, and documentation, implementing enhancements based on the community votes, and then justifying any declined or postponed enhancements. There's also a section on the commitment to collaboration within the agreement. So this includes the general product enhancements, such as the community voted improvements each year, as well as the more large-scale development and strategic discussions of how the user, organisations and Ex Libris work together to achieve this. The enhancement process is detailed in the agreement, and it includes the details on how each step of the process is expected to work between Ex Libris and the user organisations. And today we're going to get a little bit of the behind the scenes look at the two systems that we use to manage the enhancement process. The products covered by the agreement are obviously included, and talks about how new ones are added or how other products are removed, as well as assignment and changes to the number of development points for each product. And the agreement has changed over time, and it's actually reviewed every 3 years, and this year it's currently under review. So why do some products have 2 rounds of voting and others have 1? So there's a bunch of reasons taken into consideration when a working group decides whether to have a second round of voting. So number of submissions is one that we consider. So if there was a large number of submissions, then it can mean the first round of voting is actually highly dispersed. And so with the second round of voting, it allows us to get a better or accurate reflection of what the community's preferences really are. And then conversely, a smaller number of submissions means, a second round of voting isn't required. The total points assigned to the product can make a difference as well. So a larger number of points means that more requests actually get developed. So the placement of the request in the very top positions at the end of the voting isn't really that critical. After the top 20 votes or the top 20 enhancements are sent off to Ex Libris for evaluation, they provide comments and feedback on the requests, along with the development points assigned to each enhancement. And sometimes the scope of these requests may change, or the development points assigned to that enhancement could be higher than what you would expect. So this does necessitate a reassessment by the community. Some of the requests might be removed from the ballot if deemed not feasible by Ex Libris, or if they decide to develop them outside of the CERV process. And again, this requires the community to reevaluate their choices. And then, if a member's preferred request didn't make it to the top 20 in the first round of voting, then the second round offers opportunity to influence the product development. So this ensures that all members really do have a fair chance at contributing to the final selection of enhancements. And then lastly, but one of the key ones, is that the working group do weigh the time and effort required for both the working groups and the communities to run 2 rounds of voting. So that always helps us decide whether a second round is necessary as well. So why is there one system for submitting enhancements and then another for voting? Well, the complex requirements of the 2 user organisations really meant there was no one system to rule them all. The enhancement platform is run in a system called AHA and provides a robust management of the complete life cycle of a request submission. So the working groups can really easily manage all the submissions for their products with the ability to make bulk updates to statuses. It also allows us to communicate directly to the request submitter from within the system. And there is actually voting functionality within AHA, but it was really lacking for the user organisation's requirements. And so as a result, that feature is not in use, and we decided another system was sought for the voting ballots. So Election Buddy is used for the voting portal and provides a secure and configurable ballot management system. and ensures that only eligible members can vote, as well as supporting the proxy voting needs of our consortia. It can handle multiple overlapping ballots with differing deadlines, and it offers unique, secure voting links to each member, which really maintains the integrity of the voting process. And then finally, Election Buddy ensures a fair and unbiased voting process through the confidential voting. So now that we've had a little bit of information about CERV, I was just about to say CERV, and the two products you use to manage the process, I'm going to hand over to Stacey now, who will give you a rundown of the enhancements portal.
Thanks, Jessie. And I apologise in advance if I switch between AHA and enhancements portal a lot. So please forgive that. Now I'm here, of course, like, Stacey van Groll, Manager Discovery and Access at the University of Queensland Library, but here to talk about my second job as coordinator of the IGeLU Primo working group. So we all thought that it would be good as we ran through this section for you on the enhancements portal to put it in context of one of the products. So the rest of the slides that I'll cover are specifically focused in on Primo. So Jessie, could you advance, because the little, thank you. Cool. So this is a snapshot of what you will see on the front end, because we're aware, of course, that some of you might not have logged in to this interface. And so just to give it scope for you, this is what it looks like when you log in on the members side of the AHA or enhancements portal. So the key parts of it are that you can see the submissions that have been submitted over time, and we did migrate all of these from the past NERS platform. So we have a lot of submissions from way back. I think it started in 2010, 2011. Dave could probably correct me on that one. And then you can you can see that I've done some filtering. So I've chosen on the top right there, you can see there's a status of under review. And we've got 21 submissions at the moment that we're looking at as part of the scoping process, about to go into our second round, which hopefully you will see that we've decided. Jessie just ran through some of the reasons that we've been thinking about, and we decided we needed to do a second round. And I already filtered as well on the left-hand side by selecting Primo on that side there. Now I'm just going to try again one more time to see if I can advance it, and I'll just try it on my keyboard. No. Okay. So back one, Jessie, if you don't mind, because it's not cooperating on my end. Well, it really is not cooperating at all. And you're in complete control of that, Jessie. Okay, so if we just go to the admin, yep, thank you very much. Okay, so, and this is the sneaky peek on the back end side of it. So it's the flip side of what you see on that front end. So again, this one, I don't have the option actually to filter it, because part of the beauty of the enhancements portal is the steering committee have set it up for the working groups so that we can collaborate with each other. So I can see the ALMA submissions, for example, which is quite important considering sometimes submissions can move between ALMA and Primo, but I can't touch them. So because they're completely theirs. So if we need to move one from one product to another, we can do so. But in our normal day-to-day work, we just see our submissions. So this is just a bit of a high-level overview of what we see on the back end. And you can see we've got a lot of enhancements here. So we've got all of those archived submissions from across the years. And you can see, it's not rocket science. It's quite an intuitive interface, but we are discovering more and more about it as time goes on. And we're definitely going to do more with it as we discover more and see the possibilities. So if we could go to the next slide. Okay. It really is going a bit crazy, isn't it? If you just go to that one. Okay, so as part of switching over from NERS to CERV, we also wanted to see the opportunity not only for us as a working groups, because if our process is streamlined, it streamlines your process as well for submitting your enhancement requests and the outcomes at the end. And even though NERS was a bespoke system, it was still a little bit of a mystery because it was developed many years ago, and we all know that sometimes documentation on various systems can be a little bit lacking. And as people come and go in our volunteer organisation, people forget what certain fields were for, or they're just simply not relevant to products anymore. So it got a bit more cumbersome, a bit more confusing over time. So as we worked with the steering committee and across the working groups last year to implement AHA as the enhancements portal, we developed a guide at the same time, and we made that available to you as in those links at the top of the enhancements portal. And we also collaborated on the life cycle, which Jessie mentioned, of a request. And I will say, actually, Dave, that I want to adjust this because I realized as part of going into the second round that the under review, it's kind of like a mini circle within the flowchart, because we wanted to change, after it went through the second round vote, we wanted to make them under review again before we make it votable again. But we looked at the definitions and we thought it fit anyway. So we probably don't need to change the life cycle, but it's just one of those things, as you work through the process for the first time, you realize that you need to adjust a little bit. So we really hope that guide is useful to you, because with anything that we thought of along the way that we wanted, questions that we have as members ourselves, we popped it in the guide. Okay, now I feel like it's Russian roulette. Let's try and go to the next slide, shall we? See if it advances one. Cool, excellent. Okay, so another thing that we're really seeing the benefit of in AHA is the automated notifications. So this is a real streamlining for the working groups, plus also we're hoping that you're appreciating it as well, because if you submit a request and if you choose to subscribe to it, you will get notifications if the status changes and if we add a comment. You won't get spammed though if we are updating submissions in bulk. So when we do the process, for example, of changing everything from new to under review, we're not spamming all of you. But if we individually change your submission from like under review to votable, you will get an alert for that. And it was also an opportunity for us to raise the transparency factor for our process of review, and also cut down on a lot of our work on the back end, which takes away from, more meaningful, productive work, like going back and forth to submitters. All of that has been streamlined now. We've got templates that we put into AHA when we need to ask you questions. We have had a little bit of back-end stuff, just depending on the complexity of the submission, but we really kept most of it in the open environment. But you can see one of the challenges there that I shared, that we still need to rely upon members to make sure that they're not filtering us out as like junk mail from the address, and that you respond in a timely fashion, because it's really an incredibly short timeline. It might seem like a lot when we say to you, we'll go quiet for the next 2 months while we're reviewing, but there's lots of little deadlines in the middle of that that we have to make sure that we abide by, including when we hand over things to the steering committee for the vote. Okay, let's try and move along, and we'll talk about the easy reporting. This was a benefit. So on that front slide, I showed you that there was like a little tab for reports. So this is one where it's a bonus from NERS, because we used to have to go into NERS, highlight everything and then plop it into an Excel spreadsheet. So if any of you remember doing that. So this is what I've done on the back end of the Primo environment. Along the bottom there, I've set up 4 reports, and 3 of those are directly available to you on the IGeLU Primo enhancements page. And the way that we've set them up means that we don't have to touch them ever again. So it will just be all set up and available for you as the status changes. And then I've got an all one, which is the ones that we use on the back end. So the report's all ready for us when we need to hand over to the steering committee. We can just use that spreadsheet, download it, remove fields that we don't need, and pass along quickly and easily to the steering committee for doing their work. And I think I just have one more. Let's see. Oh, no, two more. So I won't go through all of these in depth because it's part of one of those things I mentioned that we're still learning about the system and its capabilities. So, for example, it does use AI. I mean, I know a lot of us are sick of banging on about AI. I can see you roll your eyes, Dave. But it does have benefit because for things like we can easily see or more easily see if good keywords are used. Like if a submission has been requested year after year after year, that gives us quick and easy ammunition to go and talk to product managers and say, look, can you really reconsider declining this? Because the community has been requesting this year after year, and it's been highly voted year after year. Is there anything that we can do in scope, even if it's not like the whole thing that they're asking for? Can we get like part of the way there? And it's a way that like you're with us at the table because we're using your voting over many years, and that sort of similarity flag gives us that easy, quick view. I'm also doing things like looking at what the other groups are doing, like Alma Working Group introduced using the tags, which is so you can see I've got Primo 2025 enhancement cycle. So we're using those sorts of things on the back end to group our different sorts of requests together, because we do run on that yearly cycle. And I realize that when we have the curve votes, we need to know what year that corresponds to. So the system is really quite dynamic in supporting us as we're realizing things along the way. We can add in custom fields to do things like that. I think that's probably enough on that one. So let's go to the very last one, which, as Jessie mentioned, a little bit on the tips and tricks side, help us to help you, because if our process runs well and easily, and you know the system's supporting us, plus also you're doing things like submitting requests that you know it's not a defect, you've checked to see that it's not already possible, and also check to see that it's not a request that somebody already has submitted. So all of those things can slow down or not if they're done our process of reviewing. And then we can put the time aside to collaborating and advocating more actively to Ex Libris rather than doing a lot of like back and forth and manual check and debating and all that sort of stuff. And I did make a note as well that comes up every now and then, like I think in NERS we could delete, my memory's already fading in some places about what we could do in NERS, but I just wanted to make a note that there's no like deletion or withdrawing once you put in a submission. And that part of the reason for that is because somebody might have seen your submission and decided not to submit because it would be a duplicate. So once it's in, it's in, and it belongs to all of us after that. But then once you've gone through all those little steps of like, you know, has anyone else requested it? You know, it's not a defect, etc. I would like to suggest something that would help, like on the development and delivery side as well, and also for getting votes. It's like the 3 hurdles, right? So first you have to get through us, the working group. So we have to understand what you mean, and then also make sure that it's written clearly so that Ex Libris could understand it as well as the voting community, because that's the second hurdle. You're pitching for votes because we only get a small number of votes each, right? And so if the community doesn't understand what you're talking about, or you haven't made a good pitch to them, they'll just vote for something else. And the third hurdle is getting Ex Libris to develop what you have in your mind. That, like, don't assume that they know what you mean. Like, actually write it down explicitly. It would really go a really long way. And the final aspect that would help greatly with this process is to remember that CERV is a closed process. So ex libris will point a specific thing with X number of points, and then that's what they will develop. So it really becomes quite problematic if you just go look at that idea exchange submission when anyone can put any comment going, hey, I think that this should deliver this as well. Like, this should be expanded. And then sometimes people get upset because they say, well, that was delivered, but it wasn't this bit. But that bit wasn't in the CERV submission. So those are quite clear lines between our voting community of IGeLU and ELUNA members and the open idea exchange. So on the note about voting, now I'll throw to Dave, who will run us through that part of the process. You're muted,
Mute
Dave.
myself. Yeah, the thing told me unmute myself. Yeah, so thanks, Jessie and Stacey. So those guys have done all the hard work. They've thrown everything all together, deduped everything, did all the long, hard stuff. So then they submitted up to the steering committee for putting it into the voting system. So obviously, this is the second component of NERS that's been covered by Election Buddy, and that's what we call the product. Well, that's the product we're using. One of the major reasons why we got rid of NERS is that it was always problematic. Whenever we had voting coming up, that's when the system always used to crash. I remember being on the phone like late at night, and the guy that developed it he's based in the US, and they've decided to go with a completely different product, which is always interesting. So he can't really be part of the whole process anymore. So that was one of the reasons why we went to Election Buddy. There, it moved for me. Thank you. Now, the big problem with Election Buddy is that there is no API connection between the IGeLU and ELUNA membership databases because we run two completely separate systems. So this is part of the timelines that Stacey and Jessie mentioned, that we actually have to do extracts out of our databases and load them up manually. So it's good old, let's make our life miserable. But basically what I pull from it is the membership ID, the election email contact, and the number of points that your institution has for voting, which is all important. So, okay, so when we load it all up and we set go, it sends off all these voting emails to everyone in the election email. You'll get them over depending upon like how many, for the Exploro, you get them all within half an hour. For the big Alma ones, it might take 3 or 4 hours for all the emails to go out because we don't want to be flagged as a spammer. So then, for example, Stacey will get the email and it might be about Alma. She decides, I don't want to deal with Alma anymore. And she might forward that email on to someone else within her organization, which is perfectly okay. The thing though is the email contains a one-time URL. And that when you click on that, that gets you entry into Election Buddy. And you can keep on clicking on it as much as you like until you vote. Once you voted, that URL can't be reused anymore. So then that's it. So it helps if we got an election email address and you might have someone who specializes on Leganto. So you'll send it off to Jessie and she can then do the voting for the organization that way. So that was one neat thing. So that means we can actually have more than one person doing voting within the organization. It's possible to add in additional ballots. Basically, it happens quite a lot. We have new members coming on board or existing members who decide they want to license a product like Leganto or Rapid IL. So we can actually add them into the system and send out a ballot to that person and they can then do the voting. It's also possible to spoil a ballot, but when we say spoil a ballot is just say, for instance, we send it out to a person who it no longer is with the organization. So we will spoil that ballot and issue a new one using the new email address. Or for some reason, you're going through the ballot process and you hit submit and you hadn't allocated all your points, we can spoil that ballot and then we can reissue with a new ballot. But obviously, the system wants to know reasons why you're spoiling ballots and we record that into the system. So there is some sort of transparency in there. which is important. So this is for the people who are lucky enough not to see this. This is what the membership database looks like. It's got the important bits are there are 2 email addresses. There's the admin email and the election email. So the admin email, if you can see it, is the one that we send the bill to for the membership fees, and the election email is the email that we send for voting. So they can have 2 different email addresses or 1 email address used twice. It's whatever is best for your organization. The other important bit is the list of my products. We rely on you guys to be honest and only tick products that you actually license from Ex Libris, which everyone does. And this product list is very important because I use that to drive the extract process out of the membership database. So if you happen to have RapidIL or Rapido, but you haven't updated your membership databases to show that you're using RapidIL, you won't get a RapidIL vote, which is upsets quite a lot of people sometimes. So then after that, basically how I can, this is some of the stuff I go through to check which you can have access to and stuff like that, which is important for me, not so much for you guys. So for example, this is how the information is stored in the database. Like it's repeated multiple times in the database. So in this instance, because it's a test one for the 99 chair, you can see every line for every product, which is always a bit of a pain in the butt when it comes to data extracts, but that's what you have to live with. And then this is how the backend election portal looks like. So these are the completed voting things. So we can look at it and say, right, for the Rialto round 1, we had 47% of the eligible voters actually voted for the product, which comes in handy for us to know what's going on. If it just drops too low, we might actually send out a survey saying, you know, why, what's going on? You don't care. We need to know why you aren't voting, which is important for us. Obviously, if you have a look at the Explorer, we had a 75% voter turnout, but then it's got such a small number of people who vote. Leganto is 51%, which is about normal. Obviously, we noticed that for Alma round 1, we have a lot less people voting because there's so many things to vote for, but we have a larger voter turnout for round 2 because there's a much smaller defined list of enhancements to vote for. Here's an example of where I've spoiled a vote and I've removed it. I just removed the email so you can't see what it's for. And there's a reason, obviously, next to the tab. So if you decide you want to follow up, this person from the UK saying, why, how come my vote didn't go through? I can look at the reason and say, well, because you're on holidays and I had to reallocate it to someone else. And we also can see who hasn't voted, but we don't know what you voted for. That's the main thing. We just know that you haven't voted, or if you have voted, that's about it. We don't know what you voted for. And here's the example of some of the votes that came through for the RapidIL vote. We know which one's the top votes, what came second. It's all over the place, but that gives us an idea what went through and how many votes have been allocated. That's there. And oh yeah, this is how we set it up. So when you do decide to go into vote, you can allocate your votes this way. So you get 100 votes for a normal member. If you're consortia, it's a little bit different. So you get 100 votes. We recommend that you only vote for 3 or 4 items. Don't vote for, just say there's 100 things there. Just don't vote 1 point against each enhancement because then it's a bit silly. You're better off allocating points to 3 or 4. You got a better chance of your preferred enhancement getting across the line. We tend to notice that in IGeLU, people vote that way. They normally vote for 3 or 4 items and allocate points accordingly. But for our colleagues in the US, they allocate points evenly across all the enhancements. You think, why? But anyway, I don't think they're used to voting over there in the US. That's all I can think of. And that's it. one thing you need to make sure is Stacey or Jessie or someone sends out a thing saying voting's now open. You should expect an email it'll be from Election Buddy. If you haven't received it, check your junk mail folder, check your local spam folder or the institutional spam folder and get it released. Make sure your IGeLU membership record is up to date, because you may think, hey, how come I didn't get my Leganto vote? Well, because you didn't tick the box. That's always important. Like I said, as soon as you see that email come through, check pretty quickly that you got that Election Buddy email. There's not much use leaving it to 2 hours before the voting closes, because someone has to read that email to fix it up for you, and it ain't going to happen at whatever time it is of the day. So as soon as you see it, or as soon as you see the email from the working group coordinator, such as Stacey or Jessie, check your emails. If you haven't got it, send an email straight away saying, I haven't got it, what's going on, and we'll fix it up quickly. And it's also possible I could have stuffed up the membership extract, which I did for the Leganto vote, because that's what you shouldn't be doing at the airport at midnight, because it just never works well. Hey, I stuffed up. Best contact information for Election Buddy things, send it either the Secretariat or the Chair. So if you send it to me, I'll be able to pounce pretty quickly on anything coming from the US in the morning, my time, our time, pick up actually the APAC area without any problems. And then, from 6 p.m. onwards, it gets picked up by Julia in Italy. So we've got a pretty good coverage for our regions. But when you do send us the email, if you can, tell me your IGeLU membership ID, because I need it to check the Election Buddy, what election email to use, and what product you are interested in, which one you're complaining about, because in the next week, you'll see an email from Jessie on the Leganto, one from Stacey on Primo, and one from Hiss for the Alma. So it'll be 3 elections running at once. So it'd be good if you let me know which product you didn't get the email from. And that's it. Over to Jessie.
Apologies for my rogue slide navigation. The one thing Stacey was worried about, and I did it.
We got there.
Shall we read out? There was a couple of questions.
Yes. So the first question there is in the IGeLU members area. Patricia says they have one person's email in the admin email field, another person's in the election email feed, but the election person is still not receiving voting emails. Is there somewhere else that it needs to be updated for voting?
Dave?
So, unless I stuffed up the extract, which is always possible.
He has done.
I have done. Send me an email and I'll confirm that that person should have received the email. It is possible that it's gone to the spam folder because it's coming from outside your organization. I've had people say that haven't received the email, and I've checked it's been in the election system, and they had to go back to their institutional IT to get it released from the institutional spam folder, which is highly possible because I know, because I like spamming everyone. Sometimes mails go in and sometimes they come back undeliverable, so it's whatever the rules are at the time. Cool.
Thank you.
Does that answer that question, I hope?
I think that hopefully does. And so, yeah, hopefully if Patricia can follow up on that, you might be able to figure out what it is. Yep. So Patricia's second question was, have you noticed any change in voting patterns since moving to the new system with the voting anonymity? And I see Stacey has posted some stats there, but is there anything you wanted to add to those, Stacey?
The only thing I will add is that we didn't know previously as a working group anyway how many people were eligible to vote. So, but it's gone up every year, like Dave, you might know, but it's gone up every year that the number of people we have engaging with the voting, which is great. So that's why we don't, like this year we had 494 of 806, so it would be great to see even more. And last year we had 391. But otherwise it seemed like the voting was following similar trends in terms to how the split fell. Yeah. I don't know, Jessie, if you had noticed any trends for yours?
It was fairly similar in that, yeah, we got more votes overall, more members voting. I'd say that the number of members voting this year jumped up quite significantly, which is really cool to see more. So for the past maybe 2 or 3 years, we've had around 90 to 100 members voting, I think. And on one of Dave's slides, it showed we had 117 this year for the first round. So that was great to see. But yeah, the trends in total numbers, number of votes for the top 10 or whatever, are very similar to Stacey in that it always kind of increases. But you know, on the flip side, we would never know what it would have been if the voting wasn't, you know, anonymized as well.
What I tend to notice that, which I would never do, is set up rules in your mailbox to divert emails into different folders. And so I find people divert all their Alma emails into an Alma folder with the good intentions of, I'll read that later.
Yeah,
Unbeknownst to them, the previous system said, oh, guess what? Voting's open. Go to your nurse system. And so they miss the votes. Whereas this way, with the election buddy, you're actually getting emailed directly. And I think that encourages people.
Yeah, because if people have, you know, like the listserv can get overwhelming. And then you might miss that key email with the, you know, ballots open. So, and that's another thing that we actually didn't mention along the way, that those automated notices, they're regular, right? So when the ballots open, it'll come like weekly until you vote, and then it will stop coming. So there's, you know, but we'll do reminders as well as a working group. But really there's a deluge of reminders. And I think that that really probably did help the increase in overall numbers that we got.
Great, thank you. Okay, we've got 2 minutes left and one question left, unless someone else hurries to type in their questions. How can we encourage Ex Libris to allocate more development hours for Rapid ILL Rapido, as there are so many good ideas submitted?
So we're currently going through the process at the moment. There will be an increase being signed off at ELUNA this year. We're increasing it by some extra points with the target of moving to 75 development points in the next year. I think it goes 60 then 75, and then we're going to try to push harder for more development points there. I mean, it does come down to the capacity for Ex Libris to allocate development bandwidth to the user community. I know Stacey's got 200. She'd want 600. No, Leganto and poor old Jessie gets 75 points, and I know she wants a lot more than that. So it does come down to bandwidth capacity within Ex Libris. Let's see.
Thank you. A quick question from Peter. Are development points the same across products or more abstract than development hours?
This is a good one, because they've never, like, we've asked them on the Primo side, like, what is actually a point? Like, what does that stand for? And they get all wiggly, and they don't really, there's no like definition, Peter. So at least if they're willing to provide for Primo. Have you gotten any more info on that, Dave?
That's currently a point of discussion when we meet with them in ELUNA, because I know Jessie from Leganto, she's quite open with what a development point is, whereas Alma, they tend to squirm a lot. And I know with Primo, they definitely squirm. So we just want to get a consistent definition, because it really should include the time it takes to do analysis of the problem, come with the design specs, development, jokingly say, and the Q&A of those enhancements. So that's what should make up development points, but yeah, who knows? Bit of a mystery.
Can be.
Well, thank you very much. We're at time now. So thank you, Stacey, Jessie, and Dave. That's been a really great overview. I definitely feel I understand the new systems a lot better, and
Best of luck.
great seeing an insight into the process of that.